Our entire KSIS team is here to introduce you to a new beginning of year checklist that we have done. We did an end of year checklist and it was really popular. So some of the requests we got on those surveys that you take at the end of the year training or after training is over said, hey, do a beginning of year checklist. So we're back to do a beginning of year checklist. But before we go into that, campus over the summer has released a checklist kind of that's built into Infinite Campus. And because it's interactive and it can give you statuses of what's really been done, what hasn't, which is really cool. This came out in 2219. It's called Scheduling Center. And I know the picture there is not super big, but there are links to articles and a training video about Scheduling Center, so you can learn more about it. But the cool thing, each of these sections, like calendar setup, you see on the top left, has all the little green bars filled in. I think that says 9 and 9. It's kind of blurry for me too. So all 9 tasks have been done, but you could hit the plus sign and see more information, like some of them are expanded at the bottom. I can tell that my year-end activities are not totally completed, which makes sense because we're at the beginning of the year. But this gives you, it pulls data live from your system for each calendar specifically that you're in, each school and each calendar. So it would change as you change years. So it's just a really cool tool. We just wanted to give you a quick show of that. And then we will go into our actual checklist. So we've done this beginning of year checklist. It is posted on our KSIS other information page, along with a lot of other good overall things. Some of them that Dee Dee mentioned in the KDE update earlier today. There is an Infinite Campus beginning of year process document that is not Kentucky specific, but is good additional documentation, which we have a link to here. And then we have on our other page, which if I can do this right and share the right screen, I'm going to show you our page of the KSIS other information page. So you see we've got links to several things here. Here's the campus release schedule. If you're wondering when will campus go down, it's always posted. We'll be posting the one for next year by September. So you can plan ahead for those things. But here's our beginning of year checklist, end of year checklist. Lots of good information here that I'm not going to go into right now. We don't have a lot of time, so we can go on and look at the actual checklist, which at the top contains some links back to some of those other things we just talked about, like state reporting ad hoc filters list and all of our state reporting reports. And Jen is going to talk to us about student enrollments.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jennifer Winburn, also known as Jen. Most people call me Jen. I'm very happy to be a part of the KSIS team. Some of the things that I'm going to just do a quick overview about our beginning of the year checklist. We're going to start with student enrollments. I'm not going to click and dive into each of these activities or tasks. I think after we did our checklist last time, most people will understand. But basically with our checklist for the beginning of the year and or end of the year, we have a task. We'll give you the Infinite Campus path as to where you find it in campus in order to ensure you've done it correctly. Then we have the data quality reports. So the data quality reports are reports for you to use to make sure that your data is entered correctly. Okay, so the very beginning of the student enrollment task is, of course, is to ensure your enrollments are set for the first day of school. Some districts roll forward that calendar well before the district sets the first day of school. So you'll want to make sure that all your students have the correct first day of school. And of course, we're all human. So as you're enrolling kids through the summer, you may accidentally click that wrong date. Just a little tidbit, make sure all your kids have that first day of school correctly. That way you can do your no-shows as well. Moving right on into no-shows, check out the user guide for no-shows. Make sure you are distributing this information to your attendance clerks. Great little document. Coming from a district, I always sent this out a couple of days before the first day of school. That way they had it in their hands to use and follow. And then, of course, just FYI, remember, you have to change the start status, the end status, and put that end date on your no-show records. Always my favorite report ever is the state enrollment overlap report. Run that report. You'll be able to see if a student has enrolled in another district, and perhaps they didn't send you that famous records transfer. So reach out to them and get that records transfer. And finally, we have the generate the enrollment status report and identify any students that have an E98. You want to keep those cleaned up as you continue on. So I'm going to roll on into the next section of our checklist, which is the calendar. First, you want to verify that your active year is set for the 22-23 school year. Then you can start running those reports. One just tidbit reminder, if you're running your enrollment summary or your enrollment status report, you're going to look for that first day of school when you start ensuring your calendar is set up correctly. Just double check your term dates. A lot of times you set those way back at the very big, when you create your calendar, you just want to double check to make sure they are accurate for your school year. That way your grading periods get off to a good start. And a couple of these other things are just tidbits for you, just to FYI, just to give you a peace of mind. Your school periods start and end times are entered in correctly according to your master schedule. So look at that master schedule that should be posted and make sure your period times match your master schedule. Ensure your school months are set and ready. That way your attendance clerks can go on and get ready with their register reports and their ADM, ADA reports. Verify your state grade levels. This is something that I would just take 5 minutes to just verify. Normally you don't have to really worry about it because it's something that rolls forward year after year. But if they are not correct, it has a huge impact on your state reporting and reports that we pull for our federal reporting. So take a minute to just look at those. Also, if your school is doing a virtual program, so you have that waiver, and so you are working with those students in the virtual program, just a reminder that they need to have a blended learning group assigned to them. And then, of course, assign the blended learning group to the days tab. That way those teachers can mark their participation. I'm sorry I'm talking really fast, but I want to make sure everybody has enough time as we go through. And of course, we'll have time for questions at the end, and we would love to hear feedback on this document too. Attendance is next. Of course, I don't know about you all, but I'm excited hopefully to get back to taking normal attendance. Ensure all your attendance codes have been rolled forward. Again, verify those attendance codes are mapped correctly to the state codes. So inside of the pupil attendance manual, you'll hear some people call that a PAM, but inside of that pupil attendance manual, there is a list of all of the state codes that your district attendance codes need to match. You'll want to verify that you have those correctly mapped. It impacts your funding if you don't have them set correctly. And then again, if you're on that virtual attendance, you'll want to go in and make sure your virtual attendance preferences are set up correctly so that it will write the attendance back to the student's attendance tab every day. Sorry, got a little tongue tied there. Okay, so those are just a few of the attendance, kind of an overview of the attendance task. Next up, we're going to start talking about courses. And so, Crystal, if you want to jump in and give them all that great knowledge on courses.
Thank you, Jen. I'm Crystal Darnell, and I have just a few reminders for beginning of year course setup for you. First of all, make sure you verify all courses are set up properly. Remember that courses rolled forward have not been validated to this year's current schedule yet. You should check for proper grading task as well as assigned standards and grade calculation options. You can see the grades data standard for further guidance on that. Next, verify that all courses have the appropriate credit type, number of credits, and GPA weight. Check that the correct state course code is used. For courses used to roster after-school activities or non-instructional groups of students, you can use new course code 90995. That course code is titled Roster Only Non-Instructional. LEAD will include these courses, so update that course code to 909995. Ensure course difficulty level is set for all AP, CIA, CAI, IB, and dual credit courses. And be sure to mark the correct teaching method and instructional setting. Of course, check attendance and transcript box where appropriate. Last, you want to check student schedules to ensure the students are eligible for KEYS according to their scheduled courses. The KEYS eligibility report is so important to use early since it will tell you which students are not eligible for KEYS based strictly on their schedule. And remember, when courses are set up incorrectly, it could always affect reporting, state reporting, KEYS, school report card numbers, as well as your student's transcript. Holly from our team is now going to share a little bit about kindergarten brigance and prior setting.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm Holly Tracy, and I will be covering kindergarten brigance and early learning prior settings today. First off, I want to reference the 2022-23 implementation guide. This is a great resource for districts to use when setting up brigance and prior settings in Infinite Campus. There are a few things that are imperative to remember when setting up kindergarten information in Infinite Campus. First, you want to make sure your kindergarten homeroom state course code is 703001. You want to assign a teacher to each section of the kindergarten homeroom. Also, make sure that the teacher's email in the first option is the school email and have at least one student in each homeroom section. Prior setting information must be in Infinite Campus by October 15th. And also remember that the early learning prior setting data standard is another valuable resource to use when setting up this information in campus. Short and sweet today. So I'm going to hand it off to Lisa to talk about district and school information.
Thanks, Holly. I realize I've talked a couple of times, but I haven't introduced myself. I'm Lisa Keeter. I've been with KSIS team for I think it's 9 years next month. So been here for a little while and really enjoy working with Infinite Campus and helping you guys as you need help. One thing we want to make sure to remind you of, which tends to get forgotten, is to verify your leadership staff are correctly identified in Infinite Campus under System Administration Resources. The superintendent's name needs to be on your district information record, and your principals and their valid email address need to be on each school record. The missing child process depends on that email address. It notifies the principal using that email address. So if it's wrong, it's going to be going to nowhere land and nobody's going to get notified about missing children. You can also add additional people to the missing child notifications, and there's directions under the missing child process and procedure document that's linked here. You also want to update your staff and verify staff listed on the Person Role Manager, which is a KDE web application that's your web apps admin point of contact, fondly known as a WAPOC, can do so that your open house directory shows the right contacts for your district and schools. Dee Dee talked about that earlier this morning in more detail. There's also an annual school data verification that's done through the DASCR system, the District and School Collection Repository. It is due by August 30th. That is completed by your WAPOC, I believe. My notes that I had on here are gone. Who is it, Jen?
It's your DASCR desker,
Okay,
point
your
of
desk for
contact.
contact.
Sometimes that is your WOPOC, or sometimes it's your DPP. So,
Okay. But that is a verification of your data there, that we use all that information for federal reporting, the addresses of the schools, all that stuff gets submitted. So verify that by the end of August, and Kathy is going to talk to you about some behavior data now.
Thanks, Lisa. Once again, I'm Kathy Kurtz, and I'm going to talk to you and go over a few reminders for beginning of year with behavior. You want to verify that your state resolutions codes are mapped correctly. As you know, districts can add resolution codes and resolution types, but any new resolution type must be mapped to a state resolution code selection for reporting purposes. Always refer back to your data standards, the behavior data standards. This part is in section A, and they give you step-by-step directions on how to do that. A tip for you KSIS admins, district resolutions should be added at the district level with all schools and not at each school level. So just a tip for you on that. Also, you want to ensure that the behavior admins have been marked on their demographic screen, on their district assignment. So make sure the behavior admin box is checked on their district assignment tab. This will add the admin in the drop down tab for the behavior admin staff. And I'm going to send it back to Crystal, and she can talk about staff information.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm not going to introduce myself again. I'm Crystal Darnell, though. As Scott Tremolis with OELE mentioned in this morning's staff setup presentation, make sure you are always using Staff Locator when adding new teachers, as well as all other new employees. When creating district assignment records for certified staff, be sure to include an EPSB ID in the district employment license field. That is different. Previously, it was entered in the credentials tab. Now it is entered in the district employment license field. Remember that KDE no longer uses, oh, I just said that. KDE does no longer use the credentials tab. You can run the Munis EPSB upload report. We talked about that this morning as well, to identify staff members that are missing those EPSB IDs and add those to prevent those reporting errors. Remember that LEAD will now use EPSB ID instead of social security number, so getting those records corrected and input in Campus is vital. Now I'm going to go back to Jen with user rights.
so as you add your new staff in using the staff locator, some of the things you'll need to remember is to create your staff or teacher and staff accounts. To do this, of course, you're going to do it under system administration, user right, and then add the user account. Each district does it a little different, so make sure you know your district's policy of how you create your accounts in Campus. We have a great report. This is one of my favorite reports I used in the district, especially this time of the year when I had staff leaving and then staff coming back to us. But the active user account access, I just want to point that report out, especially if you are a new sysadmin, that report will be a good friend to you. So just, it's very important, of course, to give them the appropriate rights as people move within your district to other school buildings, other roles. You'll want to reflect on their accounts to make sure that they have the access that they need. Also, as you're going through that, after you have your active year changed over and you're ready to give access to the new school year to your staff, you'll want to go in and then update your user groups. You'll want to change your current calendar to the 22-23 school year. And then, of course, go down to your previous calendar's user group and add in the 21-22 school year. Just FYI, make sure you look at that and you check to allow no modified rights to that year. You don't want people in there messing with that previous year's data when you've cleaned it up and got it all ready for your state reporting. Also, of course, I touched on it previously, but just review those role rights. Sometimes people don't need as many permissions as they have before. And then of course you'll have those people that will need more permissions in your system. Next on our checklist is our point of sales, the POS import. And of course, this is your FRAM application, your national school lunch. So this all has to do with your school and nutrition department. So you'll want to do some coordinating with them as far as when you want to turn back on your point of sale communication. So one of the big things is changing your IC data import mapping if you are using the eligibility import wizard. And that's when you take the information from your third-party system and you import it into Infinite Campus. It is so very important that that date gets changed. If it does not, you will show your FRAM eligibility record out of sync with the school year. So it would have Can you hear me? I got my Teams collapsed for a moment. Are you good? Okay, sorry
You're
about
back.
that, guys. Okay. So basically make sure that school year is set to the correct school 22-23 school year before you turn that on to get your dates correct. Also, turn back on your POS and IC data extracts so that you send the most current student demographics to your third-party system. We have a new data extract. I know someone had asked where to get that information from. It was sent out to our case through our KSIS notifications. If you did not get that though, your food service director also received that information for the new data extract. One thing you'll want to do, and this is kind of important, but you'll want to make sure you import your July direct certification prior to processing your household income forms or your education benefit forms. I know a lot of districts use that terminology, but you'll want to do that direct cert prior to start processing those applications. That way you know exactly who is on your direct certification. All right, Kim, are you ready for our other miscellaneous items?
I am. I'm going to wrap this up here. All right. So just a couple things I'm going to highlight in this other miscellaneous section is to remember that now you can set your grading windows and portal preferences up in advance. That will also give you more control of who can see what. So you don't have to wait until a certain date to go in there and set up your start and end dates. Also, to help districts with your campus portal settings, campus created a new report called Display Options, and that can be found in System Admin Portal Reports, and it's called Display Options. Next section is the TEDs. There is so much information on these TED links. To help with proper setup of the TEDS tab information. This is so important now due to new state funding requirements. The OCTE office is great about setting up trainings in the fall for new staff. So check out their website for upcoming training dates. Roll forwards for reports and transportation codes. It's probably something you already did during your end of the year checklist. However, this is just a reminder to make sure it was done then. All right, the next section is called the beginning of year submission reports, and this is just a list of your state reports, state reporting that's due. What we've done in this section is just created a smaller list other than the large list that's up on the top of this document that's linked on here that gives you all of the reports for the year. What this does, it just gives you a certain amount of reports that are due in the fall and winter of this year. So again, it gives you a little bit more detail, some documentations that gives you more information about what to do, some QA courses, not QA courses, some data quality reports, things like that. So I guess that is it. I do believe we have some questions here.
We do have some questions on Go Soapbox. I can't get that out of my mouth. The first one is, do we have an expected release date for the 22-23 pupil attendance manual? Which I don't know if we can answer that or not.
I know that Josh and his team are working on it in OFO. They hope to have it within the next couple of weeks. I believe that's what he said this morning. They try to have it out before the 1st of August.
Hey,
Okay.
I'm still on the call, but yes, that is
Oh.
correct.
There's Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
And somebody posted, how do I get to the scheduling center? The search bar is missing on my classic view, and I see. I think the search bar can get collapsed because you don't have access to multiple calendars. But the scheduling center, if you go over to that index and you just type in that search scheduling center, if you have access to it, well, even if you don't have access, it'll still show you the pathway to it. And it's probably something that most people will need tool rights to, because it is fairly new. It's only been out since, let's see, we took it in June 8th, so it's only been out for a month. System admins automatically have access, if you have that role of system admin in campus, to all tools, but everybody else has to be granted access to be able to use it. And you won't want everybody in there, but think about who needs those rights. And then
Lisa, do you want me to tell the true path or
You
just
can,
put it in
sure.
the chat? Okay, so the path to find the scheduling center is scheduling center again. But like Lisa said, if you need access to it, you need to reach out to your sysadmin.
And if you're using the new look, now the path is pretty much the same there too, and you can always search for a tool in the new look too. So, and our final question right now is, what date does the course need to have the teacher and at least one student assigned to them? And that is the kindergarten classes. And I asked the same question. So Holly.
That's a great question. We should have put that in there. There's not a hard deadline. So KDE's guidance is to have the teachers and the students that, that they have enrolled and course numbers set up in Infinite Campus 2 weeks prior to the start of their school year.
And that's like a weekly poll. So if something's not there, it will pick it up the next time, but the sooner you have them set up, the better off you are, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a continuous poll. So that information will continue to be transferred to OMS. But yeah, the sooner the better.
Okay, we got, just in case this happens to anybody else, we got an update on the person whose search bar disappeared. She put in a ticket and campus fixed it. So something did happen that caused that as a problem. So if you experience that, put a case in and get help. If you haven't read the email, campus support will be closed on Thursday. If there's a server outage, the hosting team will still be accepting calls, which we would usually call in about something like that, or you can if you've got some kind of outage. But just know your tickets are going to sit for a day on Thursday, but they'll be back at 6 a.m. on Friday morning. I have not stopped presenting. I'm going to stop, Ryan, and give you a chance to reload the slides so that Jen can do her presentation in a minute. Double checking to make sure that there's no questions that have come in. And I don't see any, so. And as Jen said, we definitely are always looking for feedback on our documentation, our website. You can send something like that to KDE data request mailbox at education.com. Wait, am I going to say it wrong? I never can say my email address right. So
education.ky.gov.